all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived.
Demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have arrived.
Demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First Contact
the truth.
Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand the truth.
That's it.
All right. Good evening, Earthlings. How you doing? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Glad you could be here. This is the second show for First Contact Radio here at KCAA, so we're glad to be here. Thanks to Helps, our sponsor for this Saturday evening. And we're going to get to all of that as we go along. But let's start things off, as we always do, talking about what's going on. I like to call this the cosmic weather. The cosmic weather is a compilation of what's going on with the energies out there in the world. And so what's what we're going to take a look at right here, right now. Hold down 1 second. There we go. All right, so what we've got here. Today we have a full moon. That full moon actually took place early in the morning while most of us were still asleep in the 4 o'clock hour. So we've gone through the whole day. We're experiencing the full moon and the way it works. Once the full moon goes, now we're going to go to the new moon, but that's going to take 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks to go from one phase to the next phase. As far as any particular aspects we need to be aware of, we are coming upon an aspect this evening between Jupiter and the moon sign, which right now is in Gemini. Gemini is the sign of communication, the words we speak, the actions we take, and Jupiter, the planet that is connected with Gemini, is an expansion planet. So whenever Jupiter's around, things around it become expanded more than what they used to be. And so that's good. So our communication in this regard is being expanded. Combine that with a full moon, and you could see a lot of opportunity there to really unconsciously bring our communication to a place that is much more advantageous to us, and so on. All right, our numerology for today is a number 7. The way you arrive at the number 7 is you simply add up all of the numbers, the 2, the 1 to 2, the 6, the 2014 gives us a 16. 1 plus 6 is a 7. So 7 we know is a number, 7 days a week. It's a very positive number that has been associated with a lot of positivity and success. Over here on the Tree of Life, the number 7 is in the sphere of victory right down here. And it is all about our emotions, how we deal with the emotions. The number 7 card is the card of the Chariot. The Chariot is the warrior. So there's some of that warriorness involved. A connection here between this is the warrior is wearing armor to protect itself from the emotional blows that are out there in life. That's what the armor is for. So the warrior goes through life to protect itself from all of these emotions. And down here we have the sphere of emotions, victory. The victory is when we can get past those emotions. So our emotions are very important to us. We need to learn to be able to move past them as best as we can. And when we can, we have a lot of opportunity. Our moon sign Gemini right over here is the Lovers. And let's take a little bit further look at that particular one, the Lovers today. We haven't looked at this for a while. This is Gemini. And what we have for the Lovers is you have 2 cards, or a card of 2 individuals standing there, male and female. The discrimination is the keynote of this key, which is the 6th key. Its symbolism graphically portrays sharp differences. The letter Zayin is the letter associated with the tarot card of the Lovers. It means sword, and a sword is an instrument of cleavage. It means you cut things apart. It's also called the disposing intelligence, and disposing means to pose apart or to separate. The idea of a sword comes in to separate, divide things. So what we're learning is discrimination, to separate the things that we know aren't correct from the things that are, to discriminate. Okay, discernment, not discriminate in a negative way, but discern would be more of a better word. Discerning right from wrong, discerning what we're doing. Dispose of the things that aren't serving us. The key is Gemini. Gemini means twins, and the sign is approximately 2 ones next to each other. So it gives clue to the occult doctrine in which all opposites are really but different aspects of the one thing, and that they are complementary. And when you think of the title, the Lovers, it brings things even more into perspective. And within this card, you have a male and a female figure looking at each other. The male represents the conscious mind, the female the unconscious. And there's a third figure, and the figure in here is the angel. And so the way it works is the conscious mind should be looking to the unconscious mind, and the unconscious mind should be looking to the angel side. And if that is happening, now you're in a good synchronicity of male, female, spiritual being that is helping connect everything together. Okay? Now, our current moon phase, as I said, is a full moon. We're 100% of the way there. We just went through the waxing phase. Now we're going to start waning. We go back down to our new moon. And then up in the sky, if we take a look up in the sky, what we're going to see tonight right here, just below the moon, we see, it says by mid-evening, the moon shines high to the east. It's a starry part of the sky. Aldebaran is now the upper right. The moon, lower left, is Aldebaran-colored Betelgeuse. Much further lower left of the moon is Castor and Pollux. High to the upper left shines Capella. Okay, so there's our star placement right here. So we got the moon. Way up here we got the Pleiades. There's the Betelgeuse, the Taurus region. And up in here we're not really seeing it, but this would be Gemini's coming in. Okay, we just went into Gemini. That's Castor and Pollux. Now, if we look at the Dreamspell Oracle, we're at a 13-tone day. Those are called the cosmic days. Those are the days. This system of telling time is a system that's based according to 13 different cycles, 13 moon symbols in a row, or 13 numbers. And it comes from the idea that during the course of a year, the moon has 13 different phases it goes through. 13 months, or moons as they're called, instead of 12 months. Because you see, there was a change that was made. When you look at nature, nature moves in a system of 13 per year. There's 13 moon cycles. The moon rises and falls to a full moon 13 times. But when the system was changed, people became deceived by the idea that the moon or the month should only be 12 months. Each moon should have an equal amount of days, but it doesn't. We have a calendar system that has 30 days, 31, 28, or 29. And if you were to take all of those extra days past 28 and add them together, guess what they add up to? 28. There's your extra months. You can see it right then and there how it was taken away. It was Pope Gregory who was involved with all of this, and it was really something that really changed a lot of things when time was changed, because time is an agreement. We agree that we're going to look at time in a certain way. And so when we look at our calendar system, we're all looking and saying, we agree that today is this date. And different people in communities follow different times. The Jewish calendar is different than the Mayan or the Dreamspell calendar or the Mayan calendar or the Gregorian calendar. And so on this, the Dreamspell, today is the cosmic night guided by the hand. So I endure in order to dream, transcending intuition. I seal the input of abundance with the cosmic tone of presence. I'm guided by the power of accomplishment. Now on the Mayan Tzolk'in, which is a little different than this, that uses the same grid, today is called the 5 Kib. Okay, and we could see where our placements are. Here's our placement right here for this particular one in this column, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th column over, and we back up a couple of columns and we find the 5. Okay, the 5 is only in the 4th column over. So we could see there's a difference in how things are lined up between the various systems. What you got to do is just look and see how it works for you and what you understand from it. That's basically the way to look at these various things. Spaceweather.com, solar wind 657.4 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index is currently unsettled in the 4 range. Remember, this is a scale. The KP index goes up to 9, so we're already halfway there. At the 4, or almost halfway there. So there's a lot of activity energetically going on. These links will be available at First Contact Radio. You can see the huge coronal hole that's in the bottom of the sun. We're going to be feeling the effect of that over the course of the next couple days. Between the 8th and the 9th, we should feel the effect of that. M-class layer possibility has dropped in the last 24 hours from 40 to 30. X-class to 5. Geomagnetic storm activity in the mid-latitudes is 25%, and in the high latitudes it is 30%. And last here, the Jewish calendar. As I said, this is another way of looking at time, and many look at the Jewish calendar and refer to it as the biblical calendar because it connects us in to events that are taking place within the Bible. Today is 14 Kislev, and there's a daily thought for each day. So the daily thought for today is plumbing, and that's all it says. Here we go. All right, here we go. Plumbing. Making a living is all about plumbing. You've got a reservoir up there, a water tank down there, and you need some way to connect the two. The reservoir of life is up there and can't be changed to move. As for the water tank down there, that is your career, and it only receives what is decided from above. But you also have a second career, your principal career, and that is to bring more good into this world. In that career, you are a plumber. You can open faucets, widen pipelines, drain all you can from infinite source. It will overflow into the water tanks of the material career. It even increases their volume. The flow of life is in your hands. And there you have it. That is our cosmic weather. That gets us started for today. We're going to jump away to a break. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. You're listening to First Contact Radio. My name is Josh Poet. I'll be right back.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
Now you can. How about that? The magic of turning the microphone on. All right, this is Josh. I'm back. This is the UFO News. Let's get over to it because I've got a bunch of stories you're going to want to hear. The first story here is up. We're going to go to New Zealand. UFO has New Zealand residents guessing December 1st. The location was in Hamilton, New Zealand. The source of this says it wasn't a bird, it wasn't a plane, but no one seemed to know quite what it was. A sphere-like object floating high above Hamilton had residents craning their necks and scratching their heads yesterday afternoon. It was seen from Phuket to Melville, but the mystery of what the object was remains unsolved. Western Heights resident Leo Mager went out for a look around lunchtime. My wife was looking up the sky. She spotted it, and so I went and got the glasses, he said. Then a plane went past, and it was way above that, one of the big planes, and we wondered what it was. The only explanation we could think of was a weather balloon. Met Service meteorologist John Ludd said it was unlikely. The unfamiliar sight was a good excuse for to head out and enjoy the sunshine. Weather balloons were released from Wenapui and Paramamu around noon to midnight. I don't think it would be one of those. He said, as far as I know, I don't think it's anything of ours. Very interesting indeed. Next, we're going to jump over to Mars, or jump up to Mars, as they say. Here we have this sighting. You could see this object in there. It's like it looks like a shadowy thing. Street Cap 1. If you have been listening to the show for a while, you should be familiar with his name because Street Cap 1 does an amazing job of catching UFOs and catching things up by the space station and out there flying through space that aren't normally talked about, but he catches them. He or she. I'm not sure who Street Cap 1 is. But Street Cap 1 on YouTube found these two objects in a Mars photo this week. He states that it looks like a bird, but if I want to take a step further and add that it looks like a craft, we see that there is a tail in the back of the long craft. Also, there is a trail behind the UFO and an orb which is directly in line with the trail. Something hidden in the URL is the letter Red Drops or Red Ops. I tried to go directly to the Red Ops file, but of course I got an access denied, but had to try. It looks like the rover is on a secret mission that the public is not aware of, and the object in this photo looks like a jet, but it's probably an alien craft. Very interesting. We have a video here. Check it out. The link will be available on today's playlist. Now, here's a very interesting one. This says an alien coin was found on Mars with two different heads. And you could see that the way, the color was put into the images, so you can see a little better. And you definitely see two heads here. There's a green alien face right there. And then we have this other one, which is like an orange face, yellowish hair. And these pictures themselves come right from Mars, NASA, from NASA.gov. So these aren't fake. Nobody's doing anything with them. They're coming right from the source itself. Now this is interesting. Paranormal Crucible of YouTube has reported finding some coin-like objects on Mars. I have to admit one of these photos is convincing. It may be a coin, medallion, or a brooch. The object does have a face on it. However, it is not a single face, but a double face. There are two faces of two species on the front. One species looks semi-human on the right side. The left face looks nothing like a human that I have seen before. Looks like a human, but nothing I have seen before. The most significant discovery is the fact that these two are put into their historical figures on the coin as a symbol of their bond of friendship. So that's very interesting if indeed that is the case, and that is a good way to look at it. All right, let's move from here. Our next story takes us to the moon. And what we have here is, or actually to the sun, and this is an object the size of the moon leaving the sun. That's right, an object the size of the moon leaving the sun. This took place on December 3rd. We got some pictures here. It says, I caught this moon-sized UFO today leaving one of the dark holes in our sun. Behind the UFO, you see a long trail which shows its direction and that it's moving fast enough to pull some of the gases with it. The next photo for camera, SDO AL211, was one of the same area, but the UFO is gone. That second photo was taken 7 hours later. Know this, no object that size could possibly vanish in just 7 hours. Okay, now we're going to go from up by the moon. This one was earlier. I reported it earlier in the week when it happened. You know, many times there are sightings that take place up at the ISS. And the astronauts usually are pretty hush-hush about these sort of things. However, recently the ESA, European Space Agency, sent some astronauts to go up there. Part of the mission was to go up to the ISS to dock with it. And when they did, well, one of the astronauts saw a UFO. It says here we have the European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti preparing to dock with the space station when a brilliant orange light suddenly begins to reflect off the solar panels of a pod, and what Samantha sees both shocks and awes her. You can hear her voice in the video. She saw something powerfully lit up that came to greet her. A glowing UFO must have appeared next to her to say welcome. As you know, sightings of UFOs at the space station is a weekly event, sometimes so close it's docked to the station, other times far in the distance. Astronauts are prepared for everything and are always the toughest and most fearless of the pick. The only thing that could cause such an emotional reaction from a tried and true astronaut would be a close-up encounter with an alien craft. And as you listen to this, you can actually hear her, as it's going along, give one of these you don't hear that from the astronauts. They're usually all hush-hush about the whole thing. So, very fascinating indeed. Here we have a story, a TV report about UFO contactee from Italy called Antonio Orsi. Filmed a lot of interesting UFO sightings over the last years. Do you believe the story is all the question it's asking. But there's a video here. It's 5 minutes, 45 seconds long. I'm not going to play any of it here. I'm going to leave that for you. Something to watch over the course of this weekend. But as you click it, you'll see Jaime Maussan, ufologist from Mexico, who will be talking about what's going on in there. Here's a story from latest UFOsightings.net. Says former U.S. Air Force serviceman claims space aliens worked with the military. Not the first time we've heard this, right? The possibility of the presence of space aliens has been argued for people around the world for centuries. Witnessing extraterrestrial beings on Earth has been reported worldwide. A former United States Air Force serviceman and author claims he has seen alien-like beings frequenting the Las Vegas casinos. In a report by the Mirror UK, the American author says that these aliens are usually present in bars on the Vegas Strip wearing human outfits. It further says that Charles Hall is currently in Norway for a speaking tour where he shares his encounters with aliens. The U.S. military have established contact with species of aliens, according to a report from the author of the book series Millennial Hospitality. These aliens reportedly belong to the so-called tall white species. He further claims that the defense forces have been working with these alien beings since the 50s, and he reveals alien technologies have been merchandised by the U.S. military. However, authorities believe that it is not yet time to reveal these aliens to the general public because these extraterrestrials were not emotionally ready for such an interaction. He explains that these alien creatures disguise as humans, wearing human clothing and sunglasses and cameos to unwind. They allegedly visit places such as Stardust in Las Vegas. He notes that these casinos usually are surrounded by CIA handlers. In a Metro report, he says the Hall saw interactions between a group of strange, tall, white, human-like aliens and the military when he was working in Ellis Air Force Base as a weather observer in Nevada. Millennial Hospitality is a 4-part book series that made Hall famous. The book provides accounts of Hall's encounters and interactions with extraterrestrials. It is reported that these statements were later revealed to be real. Hall's bio on Amazon.com indicates that his real-life experience as a weather observer in Nevada served as a 2002's book background. He also served as a military man in Vietnam and the in the U.S. He also notes that the tall whites had encounters with his colleague at the former military base near Las Vegas, and that the encounter with these aliens was shocking because one can't be sure whether they're looking at an angel, a ghost, or simply a dream. And one last piece here. This is a story about the Flatwoods Monster. It goes back to 1952. It happened on the 12th of September. An apparent extraterrestrial being was sighted in the town of Flatwoods, Braxton County, West Virginia. The unidentified entity is now popularly known as the Flatwoods Monster, or also known as the Braxton County Monster. Some prefer to call it the Phantom of Flatwoods. Stories about the alleged alien are an example of the close encounter of the third kind. Various descriptions of the entity surfaced. Most of the alleged witnesses say it was at least 10 feet tall with a green body and glowing red face. The head formed a heart with bulging eyes. Non-human, of course. The body was human-like, that was clad in a dark pleated skirt, which later described as green. Some reports reveal that the mysterious entity had no visible arms, while others say it had short, stubby arms with long, claw-like fingers. These fingers extended from the front of its body. A large, pulsating red ball of light was associated with the Flatwoods Monster. It hovered over or rested upon the ground. Ufologists believe that the mysterious hovering craft may have been piloted by the alleged alien being. After the encounter of the strange creature, the September 12th group reported having experienced sicknesses and similar symptoms, including swelling of the throat, irritation of the nose. They suffered from convulsions and vomiting throughout the night, which they attributed to having been exposed to the mist of the creature. The symptoms being experienced by witness were described by a doctor who treated them as the same as the victims of mustard gas. The same symptoms also associated with people who suffer from hysteria due to traumatic events. And there is a video here, 3 minutes, 59 seconds in length, something for you to watch. And that is our UFO news for today. Time for another break, so I'm going to jump away. I'll be back. Stay tuned. You're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Joshua Poet. I'll be right back.
What have I learned so far?
All right, everybody. Welcome back to First Contact Radio. We're just moving right along here, aren't we? So, you've heard Dirk Bradshaw on the show before. Dirk has been part of the UFO news segments. However, long before Dirk became involved doing the UFO news segments, Dirk was the gentleman, or alien, as we like to call him around here, who did the cosmic news. So we're bringing the cosmic news back, and we're going to start this first one off here with Dirk Bradshaw, and well, here we go.
Thank you, Joshua Poet. This is the Cosmic News with Dirk Bradshaw. I am Dirk Bradshaw. Tonight, 100 years of economic turmoil. Is it time to end the Fed? Since the magical moment of its inception on December 23, 1913, the Federal Reserve System has been a source of controversy and even contempt for a growing number of Americans, many of whom are still feeling the sting of the latest financial crisis. Despite its officious-sounding title, the Federal Reserve System is not an actual branch of the U.S. government, nor does the U.S. government have any control over its monetary money-making, which involves the printing of money as well as setting interest rates. These awesome powers were admitted by no less a respectable figure than Alan Greenspan, who served as chairman of the Federal Reserve from 1987 to 2006. The Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take, Greenspan admitted candidly in 2007. Although most Americans tend to ignore the functions of the Fed when times are good, it is when the economy hits turbulence that people awake from their slumber and start asking the question about its role in the U.S. and global economy. By far the most outspoken critic of the Federal Reserve System has been Ron Paul, the former congressman from Texas and three-time presidential candidate. In 2009, Paul published a New York Times best-selling book, End the Fed, a title taken from a chant he heard at a political rally at the University of Michigan in 2007. Paul's argument is that the Fed has done more harm than good for the American people. It seems valid when it is considered that the U.S. dollar has depreciated 95% over the last 100 years, while Wall Street continues to surge. According to Paul, ending the Fed would resolve some of the most persistent problems of our time. It would bring an end to dollar depreciation. It would take away from the government the means to fund its endless wars. It would curb the government's attack on civil liberties, said Paul. Others argue that the money-making institution has been the direct reason why so many individuals are failing to realize the American dream. Kurt Ellis, executive director of the American Jobs Alliance, said that the Federal Reserve System has failed when it comes to protecting regular Americans. Although the Federal Reserve is very much in business, Paul's relentless effort led to the first audit of the world's premier bank in its 100-year history. The results were nothing short of startling. From the period between December 2007 and June 2010, it was revealed that the Federal Reserve had bailed out many of the world's leading banks, corporations, and governments to the tune of $16 trillion, more than the GDP of the U.S. economy. It would be hard for even the most liberal-minded economists to call this capitalism with a straight face. In fact, printing money out of thin air and turning it over to broke banks and corrupt corporations seems to be yet another form of socialism. The argument for the Federal Reserve bankers' bailout was that the institutions were simply too big to fail. Although such a conclusion may seem like a shrinking of the bank cartels is in order, exactly the opposite is happening. The banks that survived the latest crash have consolidated and are now larger than ever. Meanwhile, over the past 30 years, Americans have been helpless spectators to the scourge of the corporate greed. While Wall Street bankers get golden parachutes, Joe taxpayer gets cash for clunkers. Wealth inequality has never been more severe, while wages for the middle and the lower class remain stagnant. Amid the turmoil, one former Fed employee actually apologized for the actions he undertook on behalf of the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing program. Andrew Hazar, a former Federal Reserve employee, wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal in which he describes quantitative easing as the greatest backdoor Wall Street bailout of all time, observing that in its 100-year history, the Fed has never bought one mortgage bond. Hazar lamented that that was no longer the case. Mortgage bond buying is now seen as one of its main tools for greasing the gears of global capitalism and maintaining the economic well-being of Wall Street's leading bankers and hedge fund managers, while having little impact on Main Street. The Fed's quantitative easing of the tune of $80 billion per month has been an absolute coup for Wall Street, he revealed. Hazar expressed amazement that in a supposedly free market country, QE has morphed into the largest financial market intervention by any government in the world's history. The federal government has basically taken a lot of credit that was on Wall Street's balance sheet and brought it onto its own balance sheets. So it's playing this huge support function in the economy. Most Americans can't really get credit after the financial crisis, still to this day, even though Wall Street has been stabilized. And so we have this long-term decline in the economic prospects of the average American. And yet a lot of our leadership in both Washington and in the Fed are really focused on putting Humpty Dumpty back together again in terms of Wall Street and resurrect a system that is working less and less for the person on the street. At the same time, however, the Federal Reserve seems to be the only organization in the position to exert its emergency powers for coming to the rescue of institutions that have hit the rails. But that, for critics, is exactly the problem. True capitalism and free market ideology demands that the ineffective organizations fail while the healthy ones grow. Finally, somewhere in the Fed's crazy calculus, consideration must be given for the average person, aside from the trickle-down water damage we get from the penthouse floors above our heads. Otherwise, our experiment in globalization must ultimately fail. For the Cosmic News, I'm Dirk Bradshaw. Wake up! And that's the Cosmic News for this evening. I return you now to Joshua Poet and First Contact Weekend Edition.
All right, very good. Thank you, Dirk. So, very interesting. The Federal Reserve. How many of you realize about the Federal Reserve, what it's doing, and how it's been? You know, it's too bad that Ron Paul's message kind of got lost in all of the politics. Because Ron Paul, when he was running, a lot of people liked what he was about. They said they didn't care for his foreign policy, and if it wasn't for that, then they would have certainly gone with him. But the thing that probably was the most important thing that Ron Paul talked about was the Fed, and he spent a lot of time really trying to bring to light this organization. You know, we've really been fooled again by our government, and the Federal Reserve was not put in power to help us. The banking system was not put in power. Presidents have warned us about the banking systems and not allowing them in. And there were several times when the first Bank of America was stopped and the second, and there were presidents who stopped in. Andrew Jackson, when he died, one of the things he said was his claim to fame, things he was most proud of, was that he ended the bank, stopped it. But then after he passed on, the next presidents came in and they put it all back in place and we got a bank again. And once the bank got in place here in America, well, that's when everything really kind of changed. Because then the banks took control, and that came with the control all about the same time that the IRS got the control. And if we look at all of the ways in which this happened, we see that there was something a bit bizarre about the whole events that just made zero sense at all. Unless you realize that the purpose was simply to keep Americans paying to a government to support them while breaking their backs, so they couldn't go out and do anything. And that's kind of been the case. So I know that here in America we like to think that we know it all, and we like to think that our government's out for us, for our best interest. And it'd be nice to really believe that's true, but history dictates otherwise. History dictates that we really need to do our diligence to find out what's going on, to find out what the rules are that are set in place. And many people, because of the circumstances of life, don't have the time to go and to look up and to do the research necessary. And, you know, I think a lot of people, first of all, don't really know how to research in the proper way. Research is looking into something to investigate. Research and investigation doesn't mean you're going to interview a particular person, because we live in a world where there's lots of people out there doing interviews. It means digging up and finding the interviews that are out there, finding the stories, finding all that you can about a subject, and learning, not going to one particular source, because everyone knows you can't rely on one source. That doesn't work. You need to look at one source and another and another and another, and through the process of it, you come to find out what the truth is. It's like when you're in school. Everybody's had to do a research paper in school. You research events in history. That's what you do. You study, you look, and you see what goes on. And that's what we need to do. I believe if we in this country and around the world spent more time looking at the history of what happened to our planet and our country, we'd understand a little bit more. Because a lot of things that are taking place in America, like the Federal Reserve, happened a long time ago. And because it was so long ago, people think, well, out of sight, out of mind, we don't need to worry about it. But lives are still being affected by the Federal Reserve. Lives are being affected by the Council on Foreign Relations, which determined and set forth a precedent of doing propaganda, controlling the media. But most people don't realize that, so they think the media is out to tell them what's going on. I'll just talk to the owner of this station, Fred Lundgren. He started the Post Hole because he found out that as he was working with the Huffington Post and writing articles, that there was a tremendous amount of censorship. And he couldn't stand that censorship, so he started the Post Hole in order to move past that. So those who are out there paying attention, those who are in the media, they know what's going on. Even those at the stations, Fox, MSN, CNN, they know what's going on, but they're getting paid to tell you the stories that their network wants you to tell you. But behind closed doors, you can't tell me they don't know what's going on. I can't believe that's the case. Because when you look at a show like Fox and you see Shepard Smith and he's got a room full of people on computers looking at information, they're looking at the same internet that I look at, that you look at, that all of us look at, where all of this information is available. And yes, there is a lot of nonsense out there, but there's also a lot of great stuff. And if you learn to weed through it and use the gift of discernment that you have, guess what? You're going to find the truth. And once you find it, it will set you free. So there you have it. That is what's going on with this second segment here, the cosmic news and so on and so forth. I'm going to jump away for another break. Before I do, let me tell you really quick about HELPS. HELPS weight loss. Actually, let me bring this up for you here. There you go. So this is, now you can see the graphic that goes along with this. And it says very simply, HELPS weight loss, the most complete weight loss resource on the net. Lose weight, have fun, make friends, create wealth, and win big. The HELPS store is open. All you have to do is walk through it. That's helpsweightlossclub.com. Check it out, check it out, check it out. This is Josh Poet. You're listening to First Contact Radio. I'll be back in just a few moments. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Aha, I hear some music. We're still going. We're live. All right, so tomorrow's an anniversary day. Tomorrow is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. So I thought I'd bring this up, and I thought I'd talk about this a little bit, because Pearl Harbor, that was obviously a horrific event. A lot of American soldiers lost their lives. A lot has happened over the course of the time since that occurred, but I want to bring some articles up, and I'm going to have these articles available for you so you can check them out. But there are things that have happened with Pearl Harbor, discoveries that have been made that are different than what we knew back at the time. Discoveries that all Americans should be aware of, and this is one of these history things that we need to know. Because if we understand this, this is another event that was allowed to happen. Let me get to it to show you. This first article right here, this is one that comes to us from the Telegraph. It says, Pearl Harbor memo shows that U.S. were warned of a Japanese attack. On the 70th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, the attack that propelled America into the Second World War, a declassified memo shows that Japanese surprise attack was expected. It was described by President Franklin D. Roosevelt as a date that will live in infamy, a day on which the slaughter of 2,400 U.S. troops drew America into the Second World War and changed the course of history. Now, in the 70th anniversary of Japan's devastating bombardment of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, evidence has emerged showing that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was warned 3 days before the attack that the Japanese Empire was eyeing up Hawaii with a view to open conflict. The information contained in a declassified memorandum from the Office of Naval Intelligence adds to proof that Washington dismissed red flags signaling the mass bloodshed was looming and war was imminent. In anticipation of possible open conflict with this company, Japan is vigorously utilizing every available agency to secure military, naval, and commercial information, paying particular attention to the West Coast, the Panama Canal, and the territory of Hawaii, stated the 26-page memo. Dated December 4th, 1941, marked as confidential and entitled Japanese Intelligence and Propaganda United States, it flagged up Japan's surveillance of Hawaii under a section titled Methods of Operations and Points of Attack. This next article here, and I brought several up because, again, you don't go to one source. You look at a lot of different things. So we're going to look at a lot of different, and then use this. And don't even trust me on this. Go to follow it for yourself. Do your own research. Thinking for yourself is the most important thing that we can learn how to do. Pearl Harbor, so how Hawaii was not surprised. Hawaii was surprised, but FDR was not. On Sunday, December 7, 1941, Japan launched a sneak attack against the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, shattering the peace of a beautiful Hawaiian morning and leaving much of the fleet broken and burning. The destruction and death that the Japanese military visited upon Pearl Harbor that day, 18 naval vessels, including 8 battleships, sunk or heavily damaged, 188 planes destroyed and over 2,000 servicemen killed, were exasperated by the fact that American commanders in Hawaii were caught by surprise, but that was not the case in Washington. Comprehensive research has shown that not only Washington knew in advance of the attack, but that deliberately withheld its foreknowledge from our commanders in Hawaii in the hope that the surprise attack would catapult the U.S. into World War II. Oliver Littleton, British Minister of Production, stated in 1944 that Japan was provoked into attacking America at Pearl Harbor. It is a travesty of history to say that America was forced into the war. Jump over here to the Independent Institute. Article says, do Freedom of Information Act files prove that FDR had prior knowledge or foreknowledge of Pearl Harbor? It says on November 25th, 1941, Japan's Admiral Yamamoto sent a radio message to the group of Japanese warships that would attack Pearl Harbor on December 7th. Newly released naval records prove that from November 17th to the 25th, the United States Navy intercepted 83 messages that Yamamoto sent to his carriers. Part of the November 25th message read, "The task force, keeping its movements strictly secret and maintaining close guard against submarines and aircraft, shall advance into Hawaiian waters, and upon the very opening of hostilities shall attack the main force of the United States fleet in Hawaii and deal it a mortal blow." One might wonder if the theory that President Roosevelt had a foreknowledge of the Pearl Harbor attack would have been alluded to in the summer movie Pearl Harbor. Since World War II, many people have suspected that Washington knew the attack was coming. When Thomas Dewey was running for president against Roosevelt in 1944, he found out Americans' ability to intercept Japanese radio messages and thought this knowledge would enable him to defeat the popular FDR. But in the fall of that year, Dewey planned a series of speeches charging FDR with foreknowledge of the attack. Ultimately, General George Marshall, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, persuaded Dewey not to make the speeches. Japan's naval leaders did not realize America had cracked their codes, and Dewey's speeches could have sacrificed America's code-breaking advantage. So Dewey said nothing, and in November, FDR was elected president for the 4th time. And here we have this piece. Comes to us from Truth 11, October 7th, 1940, the day that should have lived in infamy. On October 7th, 1940, exactly 14 months before the infamous attack on Pearl Harbor, on December 7, 1941, Lieutenant Commander Admiral H. Collum penned a memorandum recommending that the United States government provoke the Japanese into attacking America and thus allowing America to enter into World War II with the American people fully behind the decision. The memorandum is called the McCollum Memo, and there is little mention of it in history textbooks. Over the years, there were rumors that FDR allowed the Pearl Harbor attack to happen, but these were cast aside as crackpot conspiracy theories backed by zero evidence. But the dismissals didn't work when Robert Stinnett published his book, The Day of Deceit, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor in 1991, in which Stinnett, a decorated World War II veteran and author, requested files about the attack and events preceding it through the Freedom of Information Act. He discovered that FDR not only knew about the attack in advance, but that his administration did everything it could to cause a Japanese attack on America. One of the most important pieces of information that Stinnett came across was the McCollum Memo, which outlined 8 points that the FDR administrator could do to instigate a dramatic response by the Japanese without the Congress or the American people getting too suspicious, like cutting off economic ties with Japan, refusing its oil, establishing relations with the Japanese main enemy, China, or other provocations. And then one last one here. This was called Pearl Harbor, the Mother of All Conspiracies. You got a video here to watch, and it has a really nice timeline. It starts off, President Roosevelt provoked the attack. He knew about it in advance and covered up his failure to warn the Hawaiian commanders. FDR needed the attack to sucker Hitler to declare war, since the public and Congress were overwhelmingly against war in Europe. It was his backdoor to war. FDR blinded the commanders at Pearl Harbor and set them up by denying intelligence to them. And then on this November 27th, misled the commanders to thinking negotiations with Japan were continuing, and by having false information sent to Hawaii about the locations of the Japanese carrier fleet. These are just some of the articles that are out there, some of the research that was done about this topic. It's very sad to know that the United States of America, the president, knew in advance this information. But where have we heard this before? You see, they play these scripts over and over again. Remember 9/11, Condoleezza Rice? We had no. There was a memo. It said Bin Laden determined to attack in America. They had it. They ignored it. It happened. Another event. And if we go through and we just look at history and just follow the trail, we'll see that there have been a number of events that have occurred, allowed to happen, to provoke us into war, provoke somebody into war. Because a country and people don't want to go fight a war unless they're provoked into a situation. And so you do stuff to trick them, to fool them. And as long as people will allow themselves to be fooled, there are those who will continue to try to fool you. And that's simply the way it is and the way it goes. And governments are not out for the people. Governments out for themselves and the money that they can make for themselves. And if anybody doubts that, just take a look throughout history and see what governments around the world do and how they operate. We, the people, need to pay more attention to this because this is our life too. And we don't need to have anyone trying to control us. We need to encourage the good people within the government structures to have better success, and we need to deter those within the systems that are causing problems, because not everybody in the government is a problem maker. There's a few, but those are getting out there and poisoning the rest, and others become afraid and don't want to say anything. It's a real convoluted mess. But just like the Federal Reserve, there was a scam that was pulled on America. The Council on Foreign Relations, another situation to keep America in the dark, and here we have a situation, a sad event. But nonetheless, that's what's going on. So there you have it. That is the end of this segment. I'll be back in just a few minutes, 3 minutes to be exact. This is Josh Poet. You're listening to First Contact Radio. I'll be back. All right, you're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. How you doing? Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well out in Southern California and around the world this evening. So we have a caller on the line, Terry Richardson, Starman Terry Richardson. Hi, Terry. How you doing? Welcome to First Contact Radio. How's it going tonight?
Yeah. Who do they have? Josh here?
Yes, it's Josh. Yes, sir. How you doing, Terry?
Hi, Josh. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I didn't know what you'd want to talk about as far as the Pearl Harbor thing. I do have a little information that would be able to add to that, only about the raid on Los Angeles at the time, and that was in 1942, years of the war.
Okay.
They thought it was Japanese.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, why don't you...
I'm not sure if you wanted me to go on that or not, but I did a little research on them, and I had a regular file on it, but we're breaking up too much on it to be able to go into it. I'm afraid you'll lose me, but
well, we've got you for about I've got you, Terry, for about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I guess the best thing just to tell you is that in Los Angeles in 1942, and this was in February, the night of the 24th and the morning of the 25th in 1942, they spotted a UFO that was hovering over L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when they brought in a lot of artillery from the Army.
Right.
And they fired at the UFO that was hovering over Los Angeles at the time, and they thought it was the Japanese attacking Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
There was a lot of stuff that fell from the sky from the the weapons that they were using. They were like big mortars, and it killed about 5 people on the ground. Is what they have on record. I've heard that it was 6. But
now, were these people killed by? Now, Terry, were these people killed? Were these people killed by mortar falling shells from the things that they were firing, or was the object itself firing upon them?
Yeah, it was. It says that 3 months after the U.S. entered World War II, As a result of the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Imperial Navy of Japan, a giant UFO was spotted hovering above Los Angeles, California. And the incident occurred on that night of February the 24th in the morning of February 25th, 1942. The spotted UFO during World War II, the sky was being watched as never before when the giant UFO hovered above the Los Angeles. The military and civilian watchers were immediately alerted.
Right.
A woman air raid warden eyewitness reported about the UFO, and her quote on that is that the object was huge, it was really enormous, it was practically hovering right over my house. I had never seen anything like it in my life. It was just hovering there in the sky. It hardly moved at all. It looked like lovely pale orange and about the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I could see it. It was very, very good because it was really close. It was enormous, quote unquote. The New York News reported on this attack, and they thought it was Japanese, so they were telling people on overseas radio that they may be being attacked on the Los Angeles area of the United States due to the war.
Right.
But as it turned out, it wasn't anything to do with that. It had to do with the UFO.
Right.
And it says, I will never forget what a magnificent sight it was. Just gorgeous, and what a beautiful, how beautiful it was in colors. So it was spotlighted by a lot of spotlights, and of course the Army brought out all their heavy equipment to shoot it down out of the sky. And there was at that time there were several of them, I guess, that were in the sky, and they thought it was bombers from Japan attacking Los Angeles.
Okay. Now there was a lot. This was called the Battle of Los Angeles. There was a lot of there was a lot of shots that were taken. You remember how many shots were taken?
Oh, there was over 3,000
right.
rounds that were shot at it, and this was called the Great Los Angeles Air Raid, and it got nicknamed the Battle of Los Angeles in 1942. But that's just one of the areas I cover, and I had covered in the last report that I gave you on your other program, of course, and it was having to do with the Battle of Los Angeles, you recall.
Right, absolutely. I sure do. So it's very interesting what's going on out there, isn't it? All these UFO sightings. Where do you think it's going? Where do you think it's all going, Terry? You think we're getting close to disclosure?
As far as this disclosure project?
Correct.
Well, I think that there's coming a time when I think Mexico is going to be the one that's going to break the news, because the United States hasn't really shown any efforts to want to try to help us with the disclosure project to let us know what's going on. And I think the reason for that is because the disclosure project was one that interfered along with, Stephen Greer, a medical doctor that has gone into this and has done a lot of research on it, and then also Carol Rosen, who is a scientist that has been working along with Van Braun before he passed away. And they knew that there was going to be a big incident that the government was going to pull on the people, and they were going to fly some UFOs over major cities, and they were going to call it the alien agenda.
So why do you think...
Look it up under the alien agenda.
Okay, why do you think Mexico? Why do you think they will be the ones?
Well, Mexico has had no efforts to try to drop them out of the sky, whereas the United States and Russia has been shooting them down as much as possible to learn about their technology. And Mexico hasn't done this.
Okay.
Mexico has more or less just let it ride, and they end up with, massive sightings of 50 to 100 in the sky at one time. So they've had them doing air shows and all kinds of things, and even the mayor of the city that is over there near the border of Arizona in Mexico, they had, I can't remember the name of that city, but Chihuahua, I think it was called. But anyway, they had some kind of an ordeal with the police department there, and they had all the major people there giving a speech in the city, and then they suddenly had them appear above them in the sky there must have been 50 to 100 of them up there, and so they all saw it, and they knew that it happened. And then they actually asked America for our help to try to figure out what to do about them, because they'd never had to deal with it before.
Right.
But I believe that they're going to, the word is out that the Mexican people might be the ones that are going to say that they're coming back, and that there are indeed UFOs, and there are indeed people from another world that is checking on us, and that we need to, open our doors to figure out what it is.
Right.
And to, quit shooting them out of the sky and quit being so militant. Because a lot of countries are not militant towards them at all, and they're getting a lot more, situations where they're able to meet with the ETs than the United States or Russia is.
Right.
We're just too militant, and of course, they always hire us to fight other wars, and so you can see why that happens.
Right.
There's been even some occasions over there, in Turkey and in Afghanistan, where they've had UFOs come right down out of the sky during the middle of their battles. So
I'd say,
going on.
I'd say Mexico sounds like it's a pretty good choice. There's so much has happened there with the Mayans and all the ruins that are still there, and the temples and the history that we know of, that that's part of their culture, and it seems like they would be the ones.
Yeah. And you remember some of the stuff I told you about the Anunnakis.
Exactly.
They're supposed to come back to these temples that are there throughout Central America.
Right.
And of course that's real close to Mexico, so a few of them were built in Mexico. And there's been a lot that said that the Anunnaki would return back to that area. And there's been things that were on the walls of the temples that said a man in white would return.
Right.
And they think that would be Jesus Christ returning to come back, to make contact with the Aztecs and the Indians, so that they would understand that he didn't let them down.
Exactly. Exactly.
But they kind of kept it kind of on the quiet side as far as shooting them down out of the sky, because they never know whether it's angels or whether it's the Anunnaki or whether it's Jesus Christ returning, see?
Right, there's a lot of things going on out there, and we have to stop being so trigger happy. But it's understandable from the military's perspective why they want to keep things so hush-hush, because it threatens their power. It threatens what they can do, because and that's a big scare.
Yeah, and you remember the first report that I gave you, it was about Admiral Byrd and how they attacked him, and that was in 1947. That was 2 years after the war was over.
Right. I had met what was his name? Harley Byrd. He was a relative of Commander Admiral Byrd, and he worked in the Navy, or I think it was the Navy, and I heard him do a talk, and he was talking about what he was in a department that had to know all of the insignias of all of the different races visiting our planet. And he at a certain point had a run-in with the military, and he talked very much about this situation where he was dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and how they did some things to his brain, and he really had a lot of problems for a while because he was very, confused, and things had done to scramble his mind a little bit, and it took him a long while to recollect himself before he went out there and keep talking. So, what goes on in the world?
Well, the United States has been very good about hushing up the information, like the testing that's going on with submarines under the water, and about how the war happened with Admiral Byrd over there 2 years after the war was over. So there was things that our government has hushed up, and kept it quiet, and they haven't gone into it. And so there's some things yet still to come out.
Absolutely.
I imagine that eventually they'll come out, but it'll be, due to a change in politics of our country at present. Right.
All right, Terry. Well, thank you very much for being on here. I know we had a short time today, but we'll schedule another time, and we'll talk during the week, and we'll plan something out. All right, Terry. You have a good evening. Thank you very much for calling in, and for all of your information.
Thank you for putting me on your show. I appreciate that.
You're very well.
And I'll be glad to help you again sometime.
You got it. All right. You're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. I'll be right back.
Good night and Merry Christmas.
Thanks, you. Bye, Terry. Merry Christmas to you. All right, you're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. How you doing? Welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well out in Southern California and around the world this evening. So we have a caller on the line, Terry Richardson, Starman Terry Richardson. Hi, Terry. How you doing? Welcome to First Contact Radio. How's it going tonight?
Yeah. Who do they have? Josh here?
This is Josh. Yes, sir. How you doing, Terry?
Hi, Josh. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I didn't know what you'd want to talk about as far as the Pearl Harbor thing. I do have a little information that would be able to add to that, only about the raid on Los Angeles at the time, and that was in 1942, years of the war.
Okay.
They thought it was Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Okay. Well, why don't you...
I'm not sure if you wanted me to go on that or not, but I did a little research on them, and I had a regular file on it, but we're breaking up too much on it to be able to go into it. I'm afraid you'll lose me, but
well, we've got you for about I've got you, Terry, for about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I guess the best thing just to tell you is that in Los Angeles in 1942, and this was in February, the night of the 24th and the morning of the 25th in 1942, they spotted a UFO that was hovering over L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when they brought in a lot of artillery from the Army.
Right.
And they fired at the UFO that was hovering over Los Angeles at the time, and they thought it was the Japanese attacking Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
There was a lot of stuff that fell from the sky from the the weapons that they were using. They were like big mortars.
Mm-hmm.
And it killed about 5 people on the ground, is what they have on record. I've heard that it was 6. But
now, were these people killed by?
quite a few.
Now, Terry, were these people killed? Were these people killed by mortar falling shells from the things that they were firing, or was the object itself firing upon them?
Yeah, it was. It says that 3 months after the U.S. entered World War II, as a result of the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Imperial Navy of Japan, a giant UFO was spotted hovering above Los Angeles, California.
Mm-hmm.
And the incident occurred on that night of February the 24th in the morning of February 25th, 1942.
Mm-hmm.
The spotted UFO during World War II, the sky was being watched as never before when the giant UFO hovered above the Los Angeles. The military and civilian watchers were immediately alerted.
Right.
A woman air raid warden eyewitness reported about the UFO, and her quote on that is that the object was huge. It was really enormous. It was practically hovering right over my house. I had never seen anything like it in my life. It was just hovering there in the sky. It hardly moved at all. It looked like lovely pale orange and about the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I could see it. It was very, very good because it was really close. It was enormous, quote unquote. The New York News reported on this attack, and they thought it was the Japanese, so they were telling people on overseas radio that they may be being attacked on the Los Angeles area of the United States due to the war.
Right.
But as it turned out, it wasn't anything to do with that. It had to do with the UFO.
Right.
And it says, I will never forget what a magnificent sight it was. Just gorgeous, and what a beautiful, how beautiful it was in colors. So it was spotlighted by a lot of spotlights, and of course the Army brought out all their heavy equipment to shoot it down out of the sky. And there was at that time there were several of them, I guess, that were in the sky, and they thought it was bombers from Japan attacking Los Angeles.
Okay. Now there was a lot. This was called the Battle of Los Angeles. There was a lot of there was a lot of shots that were taken. You remember how many shots were taken?
Oh, there was over 3,000
right.
rounds that were shot at it, and this was called the Great Los Angeles Air Raid. And got nicknamed the Battle of Los Angeles in 1942. But that's just one of the areas I cover, and I had covered in the last report that I gave you on your other program, of course, and it was having to do with the Battle of Los Angeles, you recall.
Right, absolutely. I sure do. So it's very interesting what's going on out there, isn't it? All these UFO sightings. Where do you think it's going? Where do you think it's all going, Terry? You think we're getting close to disclosure?
As far as this disclosure project?
Correct.
Well, I think that there's coming a time when I think Mexico is going to be the one that's going to break the news, because the United States hasn't really shown any efforts to want to try to help us with the disclosure project to let us know what's going on. And I think the reason for that is because the disclosure project was one that interfered along with, Stephen Greer, a medical doctor that has gone into this and has done a lot of research on it, and then also Carol Rosen, who is a scientist that has been working along with Van Braun before he passed away. And they knew that there was going to be a big incident that the government was going to pull on the people, and they were going to fly some UFOs over major cities, and they were going to call it the alien agenda.
So why do you think...
Look it up under the alien agenda.
Okay, why do you think Mexico? Why do you think they will be the ones?
Well, Mexico has had no efforts to try to drop them out of the sky, whereas the United States and Russia has been shooting them down as much as possible to learn about their technology. And Mexico hasn't done this.
Okay.
Mexico has more or less just let it ride, and they end up with, massive sightings of 50 to 100 in the sky at one time. So they've had them doing air shows and all kinds of things, and even the mayor of the city that is over there near the border of Arizona in Mexico, they had, I can't remember the name of that city, but Chihuahua, I think it was called. But anyway, they had some kind of an ordeal with the police department there, and they had all the major people there giving a speech in the city, and then they suddenly had them appear above them in the sky. There must have been 50 to 100 of them up there, and so they all saw it, and they knew that it happened. And then they actually asked America for our help to try to figure out what to do about them, because they'd never had to deal with it before.
Right.
But I believe that they're going to, the word is out that the Mexican people might be the ones that are going to say that they're coming back, and that there are indeed UFOs, and there are indeed people from another world that is checking on us, and that we need to, open our doors to figure out what it is, and to, quit shooting them out of the sky and quit being so militant. Because a lot of countries are not militant towards them at all, and they're getting a lot more, situations where they're able to meet with the ETs than the United States or Russia is.
Right.
We're just too militant, and of course, they always hire us to fight other wars, and so you can see why that happens.
Right.
There's been even some occasions over there, in Turkey and in Afghanistan, where they've had UFOs come right down out of the sky during the middle of their battles. So
I'd say,
going on.
I'd say Mexico sounds like it's a pretty good choice. There's so much has happened there with the Mayans and all the ruins that are still there, and the temples and the history that we know of, that that they that's part of their culture, and it seems like they would be the ones.
And you remember some of the stuff I told you about the Anunnakis.
Exactly.
They're supposed to come back to these temples that are there throughout Central America.
Right.
And of course that's real close to Mexico, so a few of them were built in Mexico. And there's been a lot that said that the Anunnaki would return back to that area. And there's been things that were on the walls of the temples that said a man in white would return.
Right.
And they think that would be Jesus Christ returning to come back, to make contact with the Aztecs and the Indians, so that they would understand that he didn't let them down. Exactly. They've kind of kept it kind of on the quiet side as far as shooting them down out of the sky, because they never know whether it's angels whether it's the Anunnaki or whether it's Jesus Christ returning, see?
Right, there's a lot of things going on out there, and we have to stop being so trigger happy. But it's understandable from the military's perspective why they want to keep things so hush-hush, because it threatens their power. It threatens what they can do, because and that's a big scare.
Yeah, and you remember the first report that I gave you, it was about Admiral Byrd and how they attacked him, and that was in 1947. That was 2 years after the war was over.
Right. I had met what was his name? Harley Byrd. He was a relative of Commander Admiral Byrd, and he worked in the Navy, or I think it was the Navy, and I heard him do a talk, and he was talking about what he was in a department that had to know all of the insignias of all of the different races visiting our planet. And he at a certain point had a run-in with the military, and he talked very much about this situation where he was dropped off in the middle of nowhere, and how they did some things to his brain, and he really had a lot of problems for a while because he was very, confused, and things had done to scramble his mind a little bit, and it took him a long while to recollect himself before he went out there and keep talking. So, what goes on in the world?
Well, the United States has been very good about hushing up the information, like the testing that's going on with submarines under the water, and about how the war happened with Admiral Byrd over there 2 years after the war was over. So there was things that our government has hushed up and kept it quiet, and they haven't gone into it. And so there's some things yet still to come out.
Absolutely.
I imagine that eventually they'll come out, but it'll be due to a change in politics of our country at present. Right.
All right, Terry. Well, thank you very much for being on here. I know we had a short time today, but we'll schedule another time, and we'll talk during the week, and we'll plan something out. All right, Terry. You have a good evening. Thank you very much for calling in, and for all of your information.
Thank you for putting me on your show. I appreciate that.
You're very well.
And be glad to help you again sometime.
You got it. All right. You're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. I'll be right back.
Good night and Merry Christmas.
Thanks, you. Bye, Terry. Merry Christmas to you. All right, welcome back to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. How you doing tonight? All right, we're going to move right along, and we're going to talk about a subject that I really enjoy talking about. For those of you who have been listening to my show for any period of time, you should know by now that one of my favorite subjects to talk about is Jesus. I love what Jesus has to say. I love who he's about. I love the fact that we take time to celebrate who he was. I also know this. I also know upon planet Earth, everybody that's born here has a birthday. Everybody likes to have their birthday celebrated on the day when they were born. It's that special day. I mean, if your birthday was in March, do you want to celebrate it in December? Do you want to celebrate it in September? Maybe. But wouldn't on your actual birthday, wouldn't you love to have that day where people take a time to remember you? Well, I am very passionate about this because the Bible itself has a timeline in it that tells us when Jesus was born, and it wasn't December 25th. December 25th most likely is the time period when Jesus was conceived. And again, all this is part of a biblical timeline. So I think it's very important that we understand, again, there's a history that has taken place. So I've got some articles here, a few things to help point you in the right direction to understand this. Now, by no means do I intend, through what I'm saying, to take any appreciation away from you about what Christmas is, about who Jesus is, or any of that. I believe that we need to celebrate, but I believe that we need to appreciate the day and the time when these beings that we look to, when they really came in, because it helps us to understand more of who they are and helps us to understand more of who we are. That being said, this first article right here comes from the United Church of God. When was Jesus born? Was Jesus born on December 25th, Christmas Day? It says history shows that December 25th was popularized as the date for Christmas, not because Christ was born on that day, but because it was already a popular pagan religious celebration for the birthday of the sun. But could December 25th also be the date of Christ's birthday? Goes on to say, lacking any spiritual pointers to Jesus' birthday, early Christian teachers suggested dates all over the calendar. Some were picked November 28th. Hippolytus figured Christ must have been born on Wednesday. An anonymous document believed to have been written in North Africa around AD 243 placed Jesus' birthday on March 28th. In the search Christmas, we have December 23rd is another one. A careful analysis of Scripture, however, clearly indicates that December 25th couldn't be the date for Christ's birth, and here are two primary reasons. First, we know that the shepherds were in the fields watching their flocks at the time of Jesus' birth. That comes from Luke 2, verse 7 through 8. Shepherds were in the fields during December, according to Celebrations, the complete book of American holidays. Luke's account suggests that Jesus may have been born in the summer or early fall, since December is cold and rainy in Judea. It is likely that shepherds would have sought shelter for their flocks at night. Secondly, Jesus' parents came to Bethlehem to register in a Roman census taken from Luke 2, verses 1 through 4. Such censuses were not taken in wintertime when temperatures often dropped below freezing and roads were in poor condition. Taking a census under such conditions would have been self-defeating. Now, let me jump from here to another article here. This one has something very important in it that I want to point out. It says, most biblical scholars and preachers readily admit that they know Jesus Christ was not born on December 25th. However, they claim that this day is as good as any to celebrate the birth of Jesus, despite the fact that it was originally a pagan celebration called Saturnalia, which commemorated the birth of the sun god. God has this to say about appointing pagan methods of worship and trying to honor him with them. And this comes to us from the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 12:18 says, observe and obey all the words which I command you, that it may go well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. When your Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you displace them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourselves that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I will also do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abomination of the Lord which he hates they have done to their gods, for they burn even their sons and their daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it, and you shall not add to it or take away from it. Now, very few know that there is a biblical way to determine when the Messiah was born, and we can do this by relating to the conception of the birth of Jesus, or Yeshua, with the conception and the birth of John the Baptist, and there is the timeline. Luke 1:5 tells us that in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias, in the division of Abijah, which was the time when he would work, he was part of this group, Abijah. His wife was the daughter of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both well advanced in years. Well, by following the trail here of the division of Abijah, we know when Zacharias was in the temple. We know from the biblical passages that after he left, his wife became impregnated. We know that down the road, Mary, around in the time of December, wintertime, was told by the angel that her cousin was having a baby and that she needed to go to see her cousin. So Mary went, and she stayed until John was born, 3 months later. During the time when Mary first arrived to see Elizabeth, we know that Jesus was already within her because Jesus leapt in her womb. So we know John was born, and we know 3 months after that Jesus was born. 6 months after that, excuse me. That puts Jesus' birth in September, at the beginning of what is called the Feast of Tabernacles. Biblical passage talks about how Jesus came down to tabernacle life. Everything fits right into the story. So if we look at it, Jesus was conceived around the time that we know of as Hanukkah. Jesus was conceived in December and was born in September. We celebrate the birthday now, but it's part of a festival called Saturnalia, which was a festival of drunkenness, a festival of orgies, a festival that they celebrated the sun god, and all these other deities they lumped together. Now, I don't know about you, but I think Jesus is a little bit more important to be lumped together on a day and to celebrate what he is about on a day that used to honor orgies and drunkenness and all these other things that went along as part of the Saturnalia festival. I don't think, and I don't see how those work together, but the church did a really good job of bringing it together, and to this day, people believe it. Here's another one. Although millions of people celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ on December 5th, most scholars agree that he wasn't born on that day or even in the year 1 AD. Researchers believe that the Roman Catholic Church settled on December 25th for many reasons, such as the dates that tie the winter solstice to Saturnalia, the festival dedicated to the Roman deity Saturn. By choosing this day to celebrate Jesus' birthday, the Church could co-opt the popular pagan festival as well as the winter celebrations of other pagan religions. But nobody really knows exactly when Jesus was born, or do they? And that's when you follow the timeline. Follow the timeline, you know when Jesus was born. It was in September. Jesus was not a December baby. That's when he was conceived. Now, for some of you, does this ruin it? Does this blow it for you? Are you now saying, oh no, I just destroyed your Christmas? I hope not. I hope that you can understand that perhaps you take that time of Christmas time to celebrate the birth of Jesus, but then when September comes around at the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles, take a quiet moment just to wish Jesus a happy birthday then, because that's when his birthday is. Because I know if you have a birthday out there, you wouldn't mind a party at another time of the year, 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road. But on your birthday, you all like to have somebody have that special moment and say happy birthday to you. So I think it's very important. I think it's very important that we know when Jesus was born, and we understand. And we understand what Saturnalia was about. Santa Claus, the giving of gifts, all of these things are part of a festival, a pagan festival, not the celebration of Jesus. No. Two different things lumped together as one, and people around the world are not fully understanding. And when you explain to people, some people think, oh, it doesn't matter that we really know. Again, I think everybody likes to know on their birthday, happy birthday, be honored on that day. That is important. And if you don't think so, well, at least you have some information to be able to think about. You read these articles, there's a lot more information here about it, but do the research. Go, follow the timeline. Go to the Bible, read the passages. Make a graph out for yourself, and you will find out that when Jesus was born is different than what we're told. And I guarantee you, once you know that, there's a saying, and the truth shall set you free. You will feel empowered. You will feel that you have a deeper understanding of who Jesus Christ is about, because you actually are taking the time to honor and understand when he was born and separate what that is from all of the other pagan gods that are lumped in on the day of celebration. To separate who he is about from all of the pagan rituals. That's what I'm saying. So I hope you take some time to consider this and look in this. Enjoy the Christmas holiday, but understand what it is. It's a time when Jesus was conceived. It's a great time of celebration, a wonderful time of celebration. But when September comes around, the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles, take that time out. Wish Jesus a happy birthday. Just do that. And if you do, just see how you feel. Anyway, there you have it. We've made it to the end of this segment. I'm going to jump away. We've got a couple commercials, and then we'll be back. Stay tuned. You're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. I'll be back. All right, welcome back to First Contact Radio. So how you doing? Everybody okay? I hope I haven't ruffled your feathers too much with some of the things. We've gotten some heavy-duty topics from the Federal Reserve to Pearl Harbor, Christmas, Jesus' birthday. A lot of information. Just absorb it all. Take it in. Follow the links. Do the research. It's real easy. Research is not a tough thing to do. It simply means looking up and finding the information. Doesn't mean you have to go interview people. Doesn't mean you have to be out there, because there's, like I said, there's lots of people doing interviews, lots of people doing research. You just need to go dig it up, find it. Think back of how you did research when you were in school. Same way. You use libraries, you use the internet, you use videos, you use audio, you find whatever you can. If you have opportunities to interview, great, but it's not always available. Anyway, I'm going to move on from there. Over the last, I'd say, well, chapter 22, over the last couple of months, I have been reading from the book called The Bringers of the Dawn every Thursday. And it's a book by Barbara Marciniak. It's a channeled book from the Pleiadians. And I'm up to the very last chapter, 22. So I'm going to read the very last chapter for this next segment here to close this out for all those who have been listening and following along throughout this entire journey of the book. So here we go. Chapter 22, The Galactic Tidal Wave of Light. Awareness is awakening within the masses on the planet. The sum total of events as they quicken and unfold is seeping its way into everyone's reality. These events are orchestrated and designed to bring you collectively as a species to this new octave of light expression. This infusion from the galactic tidal wave of light comes from the future as portals you open into the Earth's plane as you follow and wave yourself through the journey and story we have shared with you. The masses are awakening. You see them around you. You feel the rumblings of consciousness, the internal earth changes which will truly mark the rites of passage of all humanity. We have, with the greatest assurance from our teachers, presented to this planet information that we feel can harmonize our purpose and pool our energies. We feel that we have given this planet, at this time, a succinct message of inspiration, a message that holds waves of truth. It is a message to tickle, a message, entice, and call forward the part of itself that's been hidden away and lying dormant. We feel that the material we have been sharing through this book is to awaken within you what you know. It is to bring you to an understanding of the different versions of reality, illusion as it is sold to you, and an understanding of what is your part in all of this. We have stimulated each and every one of you with our thought-provoking messages, and it has been our intention to move each one of you and to steer you from some place, not to make you uncomfortable. We may make ourselves uncomfortable. We encourage you to find comfort. We also encourage you to climb a few mountain ranges of consciousness within yourself, to go to new places of comfort and to find the valleys of eternal youth, eternal vitality, and ongoing expression of creativity. There you will find new vistas of consciousness and a galactic wave of light from the future. It is our intention in delivering the final message in Chapter 22, the final chapter, to use the vibration of the number 22, a master number. The number is associated with imprinting and delivering into this version of reality a master teaching, a message that involves an encoding. The message is not simply in the way that words are strung together. There are layers of information hidden within the method and unfoldment of this book. Ideas are presented, conflicts arise, solutions suggested, and inspiration weaves its way through, turning you always to that final commitment to inspire yourself. We feel that you will benefit from this orchestration that we have been influencing behind the scenes. There is a process of understanding that this book represents, where it seems that there has been chaos and confusion, and where it seems as things have been scrambled, that scrambled has been creating its own order, and this order is being summed up in this final delivery under the stamp of 22. In this final message, we speak into the soul, the very heart of every one of you. We ask you to hear the call, to recognize it, and to step forward as a member of the family of light. Have the courage in all the days you walk this planet to live that light and to share it with all that you encounter. This does not mean to preach or to sell that light. It means to live the light you know that you are, to discover in the simplicity of your being the purpose of your existence, to blossom with it, and to reseed this planet that is planet Earth in its deepest time of transition. The process of moving into this higher octave of understanding, this blending of dimensions and creation of new territory, will lead everyone to the greater understanding of death. Your light will be needed. Your light represents what you know. This book has many ways, through designs and codes that you have been able to recognize, to remind you in these final pages that you know everything we speak of and that is inside of you. It is time for you to share the discoveries and the miracles of operating the physical vehicle in these times of change and transition that involve the death of the world as you know it. There is a death, but there is always a rebirth. Something dies and something new is born. As this planet moves closer to these days of great change, each of you will be called upon to stand as pillars of light. You will You will show the way in times when people are desperate because the old ways are no longer solutions. They no longer fit and no longer apply. We have intimated or suggested in this book that light brings about much of this chaos on the planet. So during these times your gifts will be needed. You cannot run and hide because you are needed to weave through the communities to bring alternative ways of being. You are needed to share your beliefs and creating reality through your thoughts, and to show others how to work by healing and creating new ideals of civilization and cooperation. As the days begin to unfold, they will reveal the ancient prophecies as they are coming alive. These ancient prophecies will be much more colorful and have their own versions of themselves as they teach this planet its greatest lessons. As you evolve, you carry what you know forward and you share it and you live it. You become a greater vessel or a greater expression of light. Through this process, you will find that over the next few years, you will be catapulted beyond the speed of light with what you know. The abilities and talents and information that will come to you are simply inside of you. We will remind you that there is a galactic tidal wave of light from the future coming towards your planet, and this intersection will be felt throughout the masses in the year 1993, and they will be as if the entire planet is unilateral raised in consciousness. This wave has to be a gigantic to affect all of the masses who are locked in frequency control. It is you, the family of light, who are here in the millions making room in your bodies for this galactic tidal wave, who will allow this infusion of the first layer of the light body to be held by all of the mass. The light body is the body that holds the complete mutation of the species. It will be able to juggle realities through the shifting of consciousness by intent from one view to another, like turning the stations on television. The light body will hold all the encoded data and be able to translate it at will. It will communicate interdimensionally and interdimensionally. Remember, matter is simply light that is trapped. And as you build your light body, you're allowing a reorganization of the molecular structures, a loosening of your grip upon certain aspect of materialism so that the spiritual understanding can be more in tune with your day-to-day life. The building of the light body is the allowing of less trapped material to manifest and allow light, which is freer in expression and seeking its own source, to become who you are, so that you are not so solid. As you raise your vibratory rates, you become your light body. You will see the change in your body literally. Your body will become more vital, more youthful, more nourished in its own being, and definitely the processor of a multitude of information. It will become a super being. The building of the light body involves becoming a super being. Extending the longevity of the cellular body through the rejuvenation and extension of cellular life is coming back into fashion. This is the part of building the light body, a body that is not so dense, that does not self-destruct, that self-generates, and that self-replenishes. This is what you are striving for. You would be your light body, and you would feel it if your logical mind were not so worried about whether it is possible. Society is not telling you it is possible. We cannot emphasize enough to you that you must stop listening to society. This is going to be the hardest task for you to do and the biggest break for you to make. You have the societal self and the spiritual self, and you must decide which one is sacred, which one is your source of authority. Let your intuitive self become your authority. Allow your intuitive self to be the standard bearer of your experience, which is the experience no one else is going to validate. Our experience springs from the assignment that you are knowing, not necessarily remembering who you are. If you approach all that you know with the stance that there is divine order and divine purpose, without your ego aspect comprehending it all the time, you will move rapidly through realities. There will be many different ways this galactic tidal wave of light will be experienced. Definitely it will catapult everyone into some exaggerated version of their greatest opportunity. That, of course, is each person's choice. Our final words include a thank you to all who recognize the light source that is a part of your identity and that moves you to read this book and follow the silent whispers that echo down the golden spirals to the corridors of your own being. We honor you, we recognize you, and we are here to assist you. We are all here as the family of light to bring that choice and the freedom to evolve back into this planet, to bring it to this place where it will shine as a portion of the living library, a new star, a new light in the horizon that of the many sentient worlds. We wait in the future for your past to intersect with our present and catapult all of our existence to a new octave, the highest octave of being. It is our great pleasure to have your assistance in this process. And there you have it. That is Bringers of the Dawn, all 22 chapters. I hope you enjoyed the book. The PDF is available. You can just go to the link and it's there, and you can go through and you can read through the book yourself. There's other books. There's Earth. There's The Family of Light. Excellent books. And if you have never heard Barbara Marciniak do a channeled session, please take the time to do it. Go online, look her up, Barbara Marciniak. Look up her other material. Listen to the things that she says, and you'll find a great amount of wisdom and great amount of insight comes through. It's really amazing. I've had the opportunity to be at a number of her channeling sessions, and you can feel there's a change in the room. There's an energy that comes throughout the room. You can feel the essence that's there as she begins to channel what's going on. And she's not the only channeler. There's lots of channelers out there presenting lots of great information. Again, we need to use our discernment as we're listening to this of what it's telling us and where it's leading us. We don't want to take everything at face value and just run with it. We want to do our part. Make sure what we're doing is not hurting ourselves or hurting anyone else. And if we do that, all will be well. But as we've learned from this book, light shines within us. It's all we have to do is let it shine without. And it's that simple. Just imagining a light switch in ourselves and we turn it on. All right, there you have it. I'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to jump to a quick break, the last one, and then we're going to close things out with a prayer and a meditation. So when I come back, if you have any particular prayer dedications to anybody you would like to make, give a call in, 888-909-1050, and we'll get that going, and we'll close things out. Stay tuned. You're listening to First Contact Radio. This is Josh Poet. I'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to our last segment here of First Contact Radio Weekend Edition. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have a prayer request, give a call in, 888-909-1050. In the meantime, one of the things I do during the week is I like to play these channeled messages. This is a particular channeled message, comes to us from the angels. These are really awesome. You can find these wonderful messages online. Channeled messages, they're there every single day, and well, I think you're going to like this. Here we go. The Angels.
Message from the Angels.
By Ann Albers, December 6, 2014.
The Angels.
My dear friends, we love you so very much. There is an incredible and dynamic order to the universe, dear ones. In all things, you are guided. God knows your heart, your wishes, your dreams, and strives at every moment to fill you with love, to guide you with love, to give you the most pleasant and loving experience here upon this earth. So in each moment, drop into your heart. Especially during the holidays when you all get so very busy, stop every now and then and drop into your heart, and ask yourself, is what I am doing truly in my heart? Is this shopping what is in my heart, a gift of true love? Is this cooking truly what is in my heart, a gift of true love? Am I writing out holiday cards with love or with duty? Am I decorating my home with love? And if not, dear ones, what does the heart truly want? For indeed you are celebrating the birth and burning of light and love amidst the darkness, and so bring your light into each moment. Love what you are doing or do something else. Live authentically this holiday season, and then, even if you get less done, you will love what you do more. Your memories at the end of this life are not based on how much you achieved, but rather on the love with which you achieved it. This holiday season, truly create an authentic celebration of love. Allow yourself to feel that spark of divine grace in your hearts and in your lights, and in so doing, you embrace the most beautiful and true spirit of the season. God bless you. We love you so very much. The Angels.
Very nice message. Very nice message indeed. You know, holiday, think about it. Holiday comes from the word holy days. Just another way of looking at it. And that these days that we look at, Christmas, Easter, all of these times are all holy days. Holy days upon the particular biblical calendar. Holy days of important times. So, holy days, holidays. All right. So, that brings us to prayer meditation time. So, let's go and jump to this. Unless there's any calls, when any calls come in, if there is, bring it on through. If not, we're going to jump right into it. All right, then let's just jump right into this. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale again. Now I want you to imagine yourself walking along a path. And as you walk along this path of life, you see all the others walking upon the path of life, enjoying the experiences that life has to offer. And as you see people walking along the path, you see some who are confused. And so you take time out and you sit with them and you talk with them. And you imagine sending love and light to them. And as you begin to do this, you notice that their confusion goes away. That they begin to understand a little bit more about what's going on and who they are. And as they begin to understand, they reach out to others to help them to understand what is going on. And as they do that, others jump in as well, and so on and so forth. And you learn that through the process of sharing with others, that love gets transferred down to somebody else and to someone else. And we understand that by simply sending love into the world, one person can make a tremendous amount of difference. A tremendous difference. So all we have to do is keep sending out this love. So let's take a moment right now and let's just pray for all the people in the world who are going through times of confusion and chaos. Let us pray for all the people here in America who are having their challenges right now with the racism issues that they're dealing with, and the wars and aggressions and all the problems. Let us pray for moments of comfort within all of this, that people can find peace and healing and step away from all of that which is causing pain and hurt. Let's pray that all people upon this planet can take a moment to find that spiritual center within themselves, that place where divinity meets humanity, so that they may be able to reach forward in life and reach to the highest potential available to them. Let's imagine now all of our chakras are open. From the bottom of the spine, the chakra is red. Above it at the belly button, the color is orange. Above that, right below the rib cage, yellow. At the heart space, green. At the throat, blue. At the third eye, indigo, and the crown chakra, violet. And imagine that light continue on into the cosmos, connecting above as bright white light. And there you are, connected to the earth and to the stars. Imagine from your heart chakra sending out love around the planet as the color green like the heart chakra. And imagine seeing the planet enveloped in this blanket of green love being sent out from everyone listening to this right now. And as this love blankets the planet, imagine the earth smiling. And then imagine the brothers and sisters up in space smiling as well, knowing that the love is being sent all around. So just imagine this for a moment. Imagine your life filled with this kind of love, and your friends and your family filled with this love as well. So let your subconscious mind continue on this journey of sending out love into the world. And let's bring our conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment, happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. And open your eyes. And that's it. That's our prayer. That's our meditation. A little affirmation here I want to read for you. This comes to us from the Agape Church. Today I lift my vibration, expand my horizons, and set myself free. God is the unfailing, unlimited source of my supply. I believe and I receive. I am a global citizen anchoring peace and oneness everywhere I go. Revelations of health and wholeness vitalize my body temple. My authentic awareness, aliveness inspires me to claim my true identity. I am a descended master here to reveal heaven on earth. Gratefully I give my gifts, and I live these words of truth, and so it is. So just imagine the positivity, my friends. Imagine it. It's available for all of us. All of us. And once we do, a great amount of things will happen. I have here, if I can find it real quick. Alright, I can't find it here. I was going to read a passage from this one other book, but that's alright. We'll do it another time. Look, there's a lot of information that came through this show. A lot of things for you to contemplate and think about. The most important thing in all of this, think for ourselves. There's far too many people in the world who want to try to think for each other. And that's not always beneficial, because some of those who are in positions of leadership aren't thinking about God. They're only thinking about themselves and thinking about greed. And greed isn't what this is about. Not at all. Think if we lived our lives and we really trusted in the plan that the great Creator has for all of us, trusted in where we're going, what we're doing, I think we'd be absolutely amazed at the progress we see in our lives each and every day. It's not such a difficult thing, it's just something that we need to do. That's it. That simple. That simple indeed. Alright, let me see here. I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick. Real quick here. Let's see here. Would like to try to read this to you, but I don't know if I'm going to find it in time. Or maybe I will. Aha. There we go. Alright. This is The Warrior of the Light. A great book by Paulo Coelho. And I like to read some of the various passages from time to time. They're a nice way to really consider, because we are all warriors of the light, my friends. All of us. And when we take time to really understand that, remember that, we find that we know a bit more about ourselves than we knew before, because we're connecting really with who we are and what we're about. So let's see here. We can find one. Just jump down here. For the warrior of light, there are no abstractions. Everything is concrete and everything is meaningful. He does not sit comfortable in his tent observing what is going on in the world. He accepts each challenge as an opportunity to transform himself. Some of his companions spend their lives moaning about their lack of choice or passing comments on the decision made by other people. The warrior, however, transforms his thinking into action. Sometimes he chooses the wrong goal and pays the price for his mistake without complaint. At others, he swerves from the path and wastes a great deal of time only to end up back where he started. But the warrior never allows himself to be discouraged. Again, there's a PDF of this book. It'll be available. Just grab it, read it. There's a whole lot of these little passages, and I'm going to make a point of reading them and having the material available right away. So there you have it. That brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM. Thank you to Helps Weight Loss Club, helpsweightlossclub.com. Check them out, check them out, check them out. In the meantime, you have yourself a great day. I love you. Keep loving each other. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.